So number 17, you might get a little confused here because the first instinct is probably to get the y by itself and get it in slope-intercept form to graph it. But if you do that, it's not going to fit on this graph, right? So you want to think of it in terms of point-slope form. So the slope is obviously 3. Actually, let me write down point-slope form right up here. So there's my point-slope form, so you could clearly see that the m is outside the parentheses, m is 3, and the point x1, y1, you have to think opposite of what you see here. So this actual coordinate, the point that they're giving us is the coordinate -2, 4. So if you go to the coordinate -2, 4, that would be -2, 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. You put your dot right there, -2, 4. And now from that dot, you're going to use the slope of going up 3 over 1. But if you do go up 3 over 1, it's going to be off the graph already. So use the pattern backwards, down 3 over 1 backwards.
Why -2, 4?
So once again, there was a question that was, why is the point -2, 4? If you think about point slope form, this minus y1 and the minus x1, whatever your x value is, you have to think opposite because of the minus, right? So if you see it as 2, that must have been that it was a minus -2. Does that make sense? If you see this as -4, that must have been that it was minus +4, right? So you think opposite of what you actually see. So the x value is -2, the y value is +4, and you go to the coordinate -2, +4, and from that point, instead of going up 3 over 1, let's go backwards, down 3 over 1 this way, down 1, 2, 3 over 1 this way. So there's your line. You're done. Number 18, write the slope-intercept form of the equation. So again, we want it in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. And they tell you of the line that passes through the given point. So they give you a point, and here's the point x1, y1. Okay? And they also tell you that your line is perpendicular to the equation given. So what you got to ask yourself is, what does perpendicular mean? So perpendicular means negative reciprocal slopes. Change the sign, flip the fraction. Okay? So the equation that they give you right here, they're telling you that your equation will be perpendicular to this equation. So the only thing that you care about is finding out the slope of your equation. All right? So how about this? Going back to, they want you to write it in slope-intercept form. So you need the slope, you need the y-intercept. The slope you're going to get from this equation, it's already in slope-intercept form, but we need to take the slope and change the sign and flip the fraction of this m value. So our m value is actually going to be -4/5. The b value, now see, we don't care about the rest of this equation. That's all we need. All we needed was our slope, which is a negative reciprocal slope of what they gave us, 5/4. So our slope is actually -4/5. After that, we're going to use the point that they gave us to plug in our x value right here, our y value right here, and our m value right here, so we could solve for b. So instead of y equals, we're going to have -3 equals. Instead of m, we're going to have -4/5 times x. That's going to be times -1 plus b. And let's solve for b. So our new equation is really going to be -3 equals 4/5 plus b, which means we need to get rid of that 4/5 by subtracting 4/5. If you don't want to deal with subtraction of fractions, you can multiply everything by 5 to temporarily get rid of the 4/5. So let's multiply everything by 5. This times 5, this times 5, it'll cancel, even the b times 5. So you're going to have -15 equals 4 plus 5b. And of course, when you subtract 4 here and subtract 4 over here, you're going to get -19 on the left. -19 on the left equals 5b, which means that when you divide by 5 and divide by 5, you're going to get -19/5 is your value of b. So now that you know your b value, and we indirectly were given the m value, now you could actually write your equation in slope-intercept form, and your slope-intercept form equation will be y equals negative 4/5 x minus 19/5. So number 19 on the practice midterm says find the inverse. And how do we find the inverse of any function? To find the inverse, switch x and y, then solve for y. So let's remember, first of all, that the f of x that you see right here, that's just the name of this function. And we know that f of x is really like a y, so you could just pretend that there's a big y right there. So it says right here, first switch x and y. So we're going to magically change that to an x. Everything else stays the same, negative 1/4, and we magically change the x to a y, and everything else stays the same, plus 4. Okay, so we switched x and y, now let's solve for y. So y is obviously on the right side of the equal sign. I need to get y all by itself. Let's get rid of the plus 4 first, so we're going to subtract 4 right here. Cancels. Subtract 4 over here. You're going to have a new equation that says x minus 4 equals negative 1/4 y. So if you want to get rid of the negative 1/4, or if you want to get rid of the fraction, you could multiply everything by 4. This times 4, it'll get the 4's to cancel. The 4 times 4 will be 16, and 4 times x will be 4x. So you're going to have 4x minus 16 equals negative y. So your final step would be to change all the signs, multiply everything by negative 1, and I would also write your y on the left side, and changing all the signs, that would become a negative 4x, and the minus 16 becomes a plus 16. So there's your final equation. That is the inverse of the original f of x function above. Moving on to the last two questions. By the way, there's only two on this practice midterm, but on the actual midterm there's only one. And we all know, or we should know, the difference between positive and negative correlation. It's kind of like saying a positive or a negative what? M value, which means slope. So all these dots from left to right, they're going what? Up. So that must mean that it has a positive slope. So we say that it has positive correlation. But in addition to stating whether it's a positive or negative correlation or no correlation, if the dots were all over the place, if there was no, like right here, they're grouped together and they're all going in a pattern going up, so that's positive correlation. This over here is negative correlation. But in addition to stating whether it's positive or negative correlation, you also need to state the meaning of each situation. You need to be able to explain in words what you're actually looking at right here in the graph. So obviously right here we're dealing with exercising, right? And calories being burned. The more you exercise, so obviously the more time you exercise, the more time you spend exercising, the more calories you burn. So if you only exercise for 10 minutes, you're not going to burn that many calories. It's less than 100 calories. But if you're on a treadmill or if you're lifting weights nonstop for an hour, right, you're going to have a lot of calories burned. So we need to be able to at least read it in a multiple choice answer and identify which one's the correct one. So what could we say about exercise and calories burned? We could say what? So you need to be able to identify that right there. The more time you spend exercising, the more calories you'll burn. That is a positive correlation. The more time, the more calories that you burn. How about the other one, the weightlifting one? It's also kind of like exercising, huh? It says, or what could we say about that one with regards to the weight in pounds and the repetitions? So what could he say about that? The more pounds you lift, the less reps you get. And that's about it. There is 20 questions on the midterm. It's not that many. Some of them are ridiculously easy. There's videos already explaining each and every question on the midterm. The only catch is you have to be able to do all of this within 1 hour, which is not that bad if you practice. And the other very, very, very important detail about the midterm is it's a one-shot deal. What does that mean? You can only take it once. What else? No extra credit by correcting the test. You can't do test corrections. There is no 5% boost. You can only take it once. It's a one-shot deal. It is worth 10%. 10% of your final semester report card grade. So, if you feel like watching some TV this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon, don't do it. Get on Edmodo, watch the videos. One-shot deal. Make it count.